Welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name's of course Csaw or Chris, and today we're talking about Final Fantasy XIV in 2020. Today's video is a quick, well, it's actually not that quick. It's a brief, I guess we'll say, overview of the two starting zones you get in Heavensward. I thought it was a really nice way for us to start our journey. I did this in the past when I first got to Coerthas, and it was really fun because I explored the zone before really doing any of the story there, and I kind of got to see some of the cooler parts of the zone, some of the cooler like towns and stuff like that, and some of the monsters that I would be fighting later on. So I thought it would be a fun way to start this out as well. It was also really cool because you actually get to choose between two different maps, or two different zones, I guess. So the main scenario quest, it branches off into two different choices, and I've never really seen it do that before, or at least I haven't, like, to the point where I would go to one map or the other map. And that being the case, I was like, okay, let's see what both of these maps look like before I settle down on which one I want to start with. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're taking it all in. This is the Sea of Clouds, and then the other map that we're going to be doing is Coerthas, the Western Highlands, I believe. So yeah, we're going to look at both of those maps and talk about them. But yeah, the Sea of Clouds is probably my favorite map that I've been in Final Fantasy XIV to date. It's super impressive and very different. I think that's my favorite part about this, is that it feels very different from any zone that I've been in before, whereas the other map that we're going to get into, it's very impressive as well, but it definitely feels similar to Coerthas. You know, it's snowy, it's cold, it's spooky. This is a very different feeling. It's kind of like, I know it's very green, I guess is what it is, like, for it to be associated with Heavensward, where you have so much snow and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool in that way, and it has its own sort of story to it, I'm sure, as well. You'll notice here that we do have some pretty cute little monsters as well. Do note that I am terrified of them, despite the fact that I'm trying to get some cool views of them. The creatures on this island are difficult, and I've noticed that a lot. I know that my gear isn't the greatest on my Dragoon. It's not bad, but comparatively, my Scholar's Ironwork gear was probably a bit better, and that wasn't even that great. Like, it wasn't upgraded, and I don't even think I had all of the Ironwork gear. So I'm definitely feeling some damage when I fight people, and definitely when I first got here, if I took more than 2 creatures, there was a good chance of death, which was not good. But yeah, so you can notice here the map has a lot of verticality to it, and I assume this is because I eventually get to fly around. Currently, I don't have any flying capability, so I'm locked to the ground, and it makes it really challenging to explore this map. I'll often see other people who are flying over my head, and I'm like, ugh, I'm so jealous. And that's kind of a nice thing, because it does really get you excited for when you are able to use a flying mount. And there's always a balance that has to be struck whenever you have flying in games. And World of Warcraft, I've played it obviously for a few expansions, has kind of struggled with this, where it used to be a situation where it was really expensive to buy flying, and that was kind of the thing that would lock you from getting it for a little bit. But as time went on, it became easier and easier, and then it kind of like became this thing that you just expected when you got into a new expansion, is that you could fly. And then they even went further though, and they made it so there was all these sort of challenges and stuff like that, and it wasn't even implemented into the game until a fair bit after an expansion released, which in my mind was a bit too much, because you would kind of do most of the exploration you wanted to do before you were able to fly. So I guess I'm trying to see really if I get my mount like partway through the expansion, or if it's going to be kind of once I'm mostly done with it, and I'm not going to be able to do too much flying unless I come back here to unlock anything or do any challenges or something like that. So we'll see, but I'm definitely at this point really excited to get the flying and see how it does. In terms of exploration, though, I'm pretty sure I was only able to explore about half of the map, if that, because I think in order to get to the other side, I do need flying. And we'll see this more at the end of this video. I believe there's like this stone pillar that does connect the two islands, but for the life of me, I could not see any way to get across it or up it as a sort of just riding mount. So we'll we'll have to see what's possible there. But it was pretty difficult to do that. In terms of the aesthetics, I think the map is absolutely beautiful. We've kind of started in the evening and we had that really nice starry skybox. And as we progress, we're going to have a really nice sunrise that eventually leads to daytime. And the sunrise is super beautiful because you have all these silhouetted sort of floating objects in the background, be it trees, be it flowers, be it crystals, be it rocks. It's a very, very magical place, and it feels relaxing. Specifically, I mean, we're going over the creeks. We can hear the nice flow of water, and we saw a waterfall back there as well. There's definitely a peacefulness to this place that's very enjoyable. Now, don't get me wrong, there's creatures that are out to kill you. We talked about the sort of random creatures before, and we're just about to stumble into a town of creatures. And these guys look pretty interesting. From what I understand, or from what I remember rather, I don't think I've ran into them prior to this map before. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm no expert when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV, but I'm pretty sure I haven't seen these guys. And they look pretty cool. They obviously have like a bit more of a civilization than just sort of random roaming creatures. Like they definitely look like they have towers and sort of languages and hierarchy and different classes and stuff like that. So I'm kind of interested to learn more about them. I'm sure the story probably has something to do with them, but we're not quite at that point. Or at least I don't want to touch the story in this video. I guess that's the whole point of these videos, is kind of just to take it in and see what the area looks like. But they definitely have these really cool towns, and this is what I was talking about, like with all these sort of different towers and different like little houses and huts, and they even have like working little ramps you can go up to their houses with. And just ignore the fact that I'm being chased down and hunted because I'm trespassing, but it's really, really nice. Like, could you imagine living just on the side of this floating island? It's kind of hard to imagine because we don't have floating islands, but it would be pretty beautiful up here. Just take in all the rocky crystals. Really nice. Yeah, and this is where I was contemplating jumping off, but I don't remember if I tried jumping off or not, and I'm pretty sure like you're only allowed to jump off onto the actual ground, which does make it a bit easier to navigate the island because you don't die from falls if you're not in combat. So as long as you're careful not to land right beside some monsters that want to kill you, it goes pretty well, which is good. So we have these kind of elephant creatures that were pretty cool as well. I tried to, I don't know if you'd call them elephants, I guess they're more like buffaloes or rhinos, maybe rhinos without like a single horn, but I definitely got one mad at me, so I had to run away pretty quickly. It's kind of the scary part if you ever do explore with your UI turned off, is you don't know how much creatures are hitting you for, and you kind of have to gauge the situation based on your past experience of the place. And there was a lot of times where it was just like, okay, let's move on, let's get out of here. But you can definitely see there's a lot of verticality to the map. You could for sure go up and up and up, and I wonder how much of it is actual like map that you can explore, like if you do have the flying mounts, if you can land on all these different islands around here, or if some of them are just, you know, to look nice kind of in the distance. It'll be very interesting to see how big this map actually is once I do have flying. It's also hard when you don't have your UI on to tell if creatures are just ambient or if they're going to attack you. You kind of, yeah, you can see here the giraffe thing eventually did come to me, but for a while there I was like, is it just pretty? And then there was these little creatures on the ground, and I was like, oh no, there's people everywhere. So I kept moving. The music is also really, really enjoyable. We have kind of a more whimsical, light theme in this map. Like, it's a very, I don't know how to explore it, like kind of a new area feeling to it. Like, it's got a lot of funk and a lot of fun with it, which I think really adds to the exploration. You can see up there just how high the map goes. Like, there's a lot of really cool structures up there that I'm excited to see that I'm not able to get to in this walkthrough, unfortunately. But I think that'll add to it, because when I do eventually get to fly up there, it'll be very, very exciting to finally go up there. And you can see here, this is kind of the edge of where I was able to get to. You can see that I can overlook kind of the ponds on the other side, and there's this big sort of rock structure to my left that just goes up, and that's kind of like the central point of the map. It seems like a lot of the islands are connected to it, and I didn't see anywhere where I could like climb up it or anything, so I just moved on from that point and went to the next map. Now, this map is similar to maps we've seen before. Like, it's definitely got some architecture that's fairly similar to Ishgard, obviously. It's pretty close to that. And it's got some Coerthas feels as well, with its snowiness, and there's someone flying over my head right there. And just its overall aesthetic with the ice and stuff like that. Like, we've seen ice and snow before, for sure. But it's definitely got more of a, like, you're off on your own feeling, like a lone warrior on his way to battle. And the music is just absolutely wonderful. I believe this is the Dragon Song soundtrack that we're hearing in the background, and that's kind of been one of my favorite parts of the expansion so far, is that they make this beautiful music for their cinematic trailers and stuff like that, and they're not scared to put it in the actual game. A lot of like games that I've played that have had really cool music, you don't often hear the iconic music. It's often just on like the loading screen or something like that, but the actual gameplay, it'll have all this ambient noise that you just won't really pay attention. Well, there's quite a few moments in this map that I'm just listening to the music, and it's absolutely beautiful. So we here have a statue, and I believe this is one of the, I have no idea, but it looks like a Dragoon for sure, and I would assume it might be one of the original 2 Dragoons, or I guess there was only one that was a Dragoon, and I'm forgetting the name, so we're not going to get into the lore any more than that, but I suspicion that might be like the original Dragoon and a statue for him. And then up on the cliff over here, if you can see in the distance, we do have the bones of a dragon sort of laid out there. So this place, and we'll see more areas of this as well, clearly has seen a fair bit of battle with dragons, whereas the last map we looked at, the Sea of Clouds, didn't necessarily have as much of a war feeling to it, whereas this map does not feel safe. It feels like it's known conflict for quite some time, and is quite spooky. It's also really, really big. Like, compared to a lot of the other maps we've seen in Final Fantasy XIV and The Realm Reborn, this map is huge. It took me a really long time to walk around the whole thing. Comparatively to the Sea of Clouds, I was actually able to explore most of this map, which it just really impressed me how big these maps are. I'm also enjoying this new mount that you guys pointed out in my bag. I did not know that I had a mount just sitting in my bag, so thank you very much for the people who did point that out. I really do enjoy this mount. I love it, but it's so big that it feels like it walks really slowly. Like, you know, when you're in this big sort of creature, and because of how big all the body parts are, it has to have a slower animation to go the same speed. And because of that, it just feels like it's like dawdling, right? Like it's kind of like dun 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 dun. So I don't know. I'm trying to love it. It also makes a really loud footstep noise, and that's why I've disabled the footstep noises for this. So there you go. Hopefully it doesn't ruin anyone's experiences. I know people sometimes get mad when I disable some of the sounds, but for these walkthroughs, I really, really wanted to focus on the music in the background, because it's just absolutely phenomenal. So we're coming over to more of a settlement over here, where we do have kind of a mix of town with some creatures that we've known before and some creatures that are new. But the one thing that really caught my eye is that there is, once again, a graveyard here, further emphasizing the fact that there has been a lot of conflict here. Like this, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the original wars have happened here. And once again, not getting into the story necessarily. Obviously, people in the comments can share what they want. I choose to read the comments at my own caution, because I know sometimes spoilers can be found there. So don't worry, don't feel too bad about it. You can label that it is a spoiler if it's going to be a spoiler that you're going to share, and then I'll usually steer away from that and come back to it once I've completed a bit more. So we have kind of a frozen lake here, and there's a really cool arch with a bunch of creatures kind of around it. They kind of look like I don't know, they've got kind of like beaks to them, which is pretty terrifying. I live in a place where geese are pretty terrifying, so I don't know. I see geese in anything with a beak. It's spooky. The one thing I did notice coming around on this side, we do have what looks like a boat that's frozen in the water, and then up on the left, we have some windmills. And it looks like the windmills have been frozen as well. And it was at this point that I started getting this feeling that this place hasn't always seen this much ice and snow. It feels like it might have been somewhere a lot warmer before, where a lot of these different like windmills and boats were unfrozen, and then all of a sudden everything got frozen. And I'm wondering if that's kind of a big part of the story of this map. It definitely has that feeling to it, but I could be wrong. So we've got these kind of ice versions of the spidery things you see in the Copperbell mines. And I really do like the shape of the creature. As a kid, I always loved like rocks and kind of like the crystal formations. So these spiders look really cool, the crystal formations on their back. So we've kind of gone all the way across the map to one side, and now we're working on the other side, which just once again emphasizes how big this map is. We have this huge fortress with all these spikes and stuff coming out of it. And then in the distance, there's kind of like this weird rock with spikes coming out of it too that I got fixated on there for a second. But this door here, and I think later on looking at the map, I do confirm that this is the entrance to a dungeon of some sort, which is interesting and definitely looks super cool to go into. So I'm pretty excited for that dungeon. I don't remember seeing a dungeon entrance in the Sea of Clouds, like from the part of the map that I explored. It could very well be on the other side. There's a tremendous amount of that map that still hasn't been explored by me, so it could be over there. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. Okay, so over here, this is what I was talking about earlier. We have more remains of war. We have sort of like skeletons of different dragons with flags and stuff like that. So clearly there's been just a tremendous amount of fighting around here. And like it's kind of like the fighting just got frozen over. Like the war didn't necessarily stop, it just got frozen in time. I also really enjoy the fact that there's this river that kind of, like it's a frozen river, but it goes through a lot of the map. So I kind of use it as a path to get along different places. And it's I don't know, it added to the exploration factor, because even if you're not using, like you don't have a map up on your screen, like when you have your UI disabled, you can kind of use the river as a guide, which is pretty cool. It really makes exploration a lot more immersive, because you kind of have to try and remember, okay, I saw that landmark over there, so that means we're due this way. And I did a pretty good job, I think, of exploring a lot of the map. I believe there was like a certain part in the center that I didn't go up onto, so there's probably some things that I didn't see. This is that rock, though, that I saw earlier that had kind of a weird formation to it, with some spikes coming out, which is really cool. But yeah, my journey into Heavensward so far has been really good. I'm trying to take it pretty slow, and I've heard from a few people that it does start slower. Like a lot of the expansions, you have quite a few quests and stuff that you get through before you get to your first dungeon. So I don't know how quick I will be into a dungeon or not, but I thought this was a nice way to start things. These guys are really fuzzy. Obviously it's really cool. Like you can see how big they are compared to like that polar bear that's there, which is just, it's crazy because polar bears are huge. I mean, my robot makes me look huge, but I'm still a small little Lalafell. We kind of have a sort of outpost here that I assume will be a little bit relevant to the story, because you've got kind of like the different sheltered caravans and stuff like that, and a little bit of a different music change, which is nice. Is there, and I actually meant to ask this, I know because in the options I was able to disable the mount up music. Is there a way to disable like just have the zone's background music play? I wouldn't obviously use it all the time. I know some people don't like me disabling certain musics, but whenever I'm just exploring a actual open world zone and questing, I always really like just having the background track just keep flowing, and it really sinks me into the world, which is nice. So if that is an option, I would be interested. And there's that bridge once again from kind of a different angle. But yeah, so this was kind of the exploration of both maps. It was kind of a long video, I know that. I know I explored this map a lot more than I explored the other map. That being said, at this point in time, I probably find the other map, the Sea of Clouds, more interesting. That's probably my favorite map out of the two. But once I've done the story and kind of know more about them, I'll be able to say more about it. But that's kind of my question to you guys. Which of these two maps was your favorite? Obviously, you'll know a bit more than I will, since you've probably done the story through here as well. But I'm just curious in finding out which one you prefer. But yeah, so we'll wrap up the video here. I think we've done enough exploration for one day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.